All right, guys, coming at you. It's Rich Jensen, a really powerful one. Rich, coming out of high school, made some bad decisions that led him down a path of destruction, in and out of jail, drug and alcohol abuse. At the age of 37, he decided wrestling in college is what he needed to help get him on the right path. And it's just a really incredible story about how he not only got his life back together, but also using his story to do a lot of good and help steer people away from the path that he took. Uh, I hope you enjoy it. Please like and subscribe, and hope to see you on the mat soon. All right, Rich Jensen, how you doing?
Good man, how you doing, Joe?
Good, man. Hanging in there. Times are interesting, but hanging in there. Man, I'm really excited to talk to you today. I shouldn't have
Good.
done it. I watched Getting Off the Mat like 30 minutes ago, and man, it tugs at me. So
Yeah,
yeah, it makes me emotional every time I watch it.
it's
Um,
powerful, though. I still get people that haven't seen it that see it, and they message me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, what an emotional story." It's exciting, and you think that's emotional? Wait till you read my book.
yeah, yeah, I'll have to check that out. So um, I'm sure a lot of people that listen to this know who you are, Rich. But Rich Jensen, really tough and awesome story. Um, why don't you lay it out for us before I get to any questions? Give me your story and catch anybody else up that might be new to it.
Yeah, yeah, okay, that sounds good. Um, you know, as you know, a lot of listeners know my story. They've watched my journey the past 10, 15 years, chasing a national title, rebuilding my life, restructuring it around the sport of wrestling. But, trying to make a comeback in the sport at 38 and competing for 10 years, it's not of the norm. It's not a normal pathway. But for me, when I got out of high school, the problem is when I got out of high school, when I should have been going to college, should have been going to college, competing, getting an education. Um, as the doc, I went up to Alaska and went fishing for the summer. And once I made that one decision, it completely changed the course of my life. That one choice that I had to make was hold down the fort during the summer, work, and go to school. Went off fishing thinking I was going to chase some money for the summer. And and I still get emotional about it because it was such a pivotal moment. You get these moments in your life and you have a choice to make. And it can completely change your life for the better or it can change your life for the worse. And for me, it took me down a road of destruction. Because once I got to Alaska, I got exposed to drugs, I got exposed to alcohol, I got exposed to money, and I'm 19 years old. And I had no tools to manage that. I had nothing to work with prior to that. So boom, there I was, and being a kid fighting with low self-esteem, trying to find his purpose and carve his way and figure it out, and I got sucked right in. And once I got a taste of those drugs up there and that money, my whole life went in a tailspin. In fact, I'll tell you what, the first chapter of my book is addiction had me at hello, Joe. And it's because I had wrestling for years, and it was the medicine for me. It helped me stay on track. It helped me stay focused. It helped me get an education to get through high school. That camaraderie, that team building, that sense of purpose. And once I got off into the real world, I wasn't really prepared for what was ahead. And so with that lifestyle, that fisherman's lifestyle, I forgot about college real quick. I got all this money, man. I'm the man on the scene. I'm strutting, walking different. I'm cool cat now, and it was a false sense of security, a false sense of esteem that I had rolling forward from there. And 20 years of my life, that one decision to go up there, that first decision to use drugs, it took me 20 years to get my feet back on the ground. It spiraled out of control. It went from a little bit of using, a little excitement, a little partying to a full-blown habit. And then once that happened, I couldn't reel it back in. I wasn't able to stop the train. And so for 20 years, I found myself in jail. I found myself in prison. I had lost relationships. I separated myself from what was really important in life. And drugs became the priority. And there's another chapter in my book, Kids on the Wayside. And I still carry some guilt today and shame today because it became so important that my kids were put on the wayside for a long time, and the most important people in my life. And that's the power that drugs has over people. That's the power it had over me. It controlled every decision that I made for a long time, and I found myself, going to jail, going to prison, and then starting to stretch my boundaries a little more and a little more, doing a little more reckless things, and I got myself into some serious trouble, and I ended up at the Oregon State Penitentiary, the maximum state prison. Never killed anybody. I'm not no super violent crimes, no weirdo stuff. But let me tell you something. Drugs were controlling, and the consequences didn't really matter. I didn't think about it. And so, anyway, I found myself, there's 5 things that happened, and one of the things that happened at an instrumental time in my life, I tried treatment 5 or 6 times. I found myself in trouble, and I went to the maximum state prison finally. I felt like I graduated. Now I'm here with all the killers, and mind you, this is a kid that came from a decent home, good family values, wrestling background, graduated from high school, never really touched drugs and alcohol through school, man. And then, boom, took a hard left. And, so there I was. I went to prison. I got released from prison to a homeless shelter in downtown Portland. I was laying on a gym floor in downtown Portland at 34 years old with the clothes on my back. Not sure where I was going. Knew I wanted out. Didn't know how to get out. Didn't know what life was going to look like. But I knew I wanted out. I wanted out. My mom passed away while I was in prison. I was in maximum state prison. And now I'm laying on a gym floor with a bunch of homeless people. And I'm one of them. Walking the streets of downtown Portland and rolling used tobacco out of the ashtray into a skin to smoke a cigarette. And that's what the lifestyle led me to, was that place, a very, very low bottom. And I knew that wrestling was going to help my life. I knew that wrestling was the best years I ever had, the most, the wrestling room was the place I felt at home. And here I am 2 decades away from the sport, but I knew that deep down, if I could go back to school, if I could go get an education, if I could just do this over, man, if I could start over right here, right now, if I could go back to school and maybe I could be part of a wrestling team again, and maybe it would help me restructure my life around the sport, and I'd have a chance for a little higher level of success than where I was at, I didn't know that, I didn't foresee all this. I didn't foresee, a decade of competition and finding success in my life to the level we have. I didn't foresee all this. But I knew that it would help refocus me and guide me, and I would get away from that lifestyle a little bit. So there I was. I got some help, got into treatment. I found some programs that took me in from that shelter, and then I got housing, and there's a process, and then I went into sober housing, and I stayed clean for a while, and it just kind of, there's a continuum of care, and I had to stay resilient. I had to stay persistent in everything that I was trying to do. Otherwise, I'd get sucked back, and I knew that. And so I set my sights on Clackamas Community College, and I set my sights on getting an education in the automotive program. And I set my sights on being part of the wrestling team again at 38 years old. And so that was my goal. That was my vision, was just to get on that wrestling team and be part of it. That was, at that time, that's what it was. And it was a Hail Mary. It was like it was a shot in the dark. It was a long shot. But when I went back to school, I did 1 year and got all my schooling up to college level at PCC. As soon as I did, I went straight over to Clackamas Community College and I talked to the athletic director about wrestling for Clackamas. And I wrote about it in the book too because it's such an important moment. Because he was trying to let me down easy. He says, "Hey, when was the last time you wrestled?" 20 years ago. Well, you forget how hard it is, how demanding it is, how much you have to sacrifice and put into it. He goes, "At 19, it's hard. At 37 years old, it's rarely been done. In fact, I don't know if you know exactly what's ahead if you do this." And he was trying to let me down easy, Joe. He was trying to let me down easy and kind of, but what I heard was there was a small, slim chance you could be part of the team. Just a tiny little chance. That's what I heard out of it all. And I left there and I said, I'm going to be on this team, And so one thing led to another. I got registered at Clackamas Community College. I got into their automotive program, and I show up for practice. First day of practice, and here I am with all these kids. I'm 10 years older than the coaches, and coaches like, I didn't exactly expect you to show up. I heard about you. The kids were, we were going to do some Ironman and run the track, and they're like, "What? Did you watch some inspirational movie where this old guy made a comeback?" And all this kind of jokes and goofing around kids do, and I just said, "Hey man, I'm here. Let's do this thing," and I just went running with the kids, and there was a little bit of a distance because it was such a foreign situation for all of us, but what I learned is that wrestling has a way of being inclusive. Wrestling has a way of bonding people, no matter what size, make, color, how old you are, it doesn't matter. It brings us together, and that's the magic of the sport. And I knew there'd be value being part of the team, in my life, but it didn't take long. Within a couple weeks, all of a sudden, we started meshing and coming together, and the coaches were their first year at Clackamas. It's my comeback year. We had a hodgepodge team coming from all over the place. Some of them been at bigger schools and making a comeback at Clackamas. Some young, kind of off track, but they're there, and that team, dude, we are still in contact today, today, and that's that bond that happens. It doesn't matter who you are, but we came together, Joe. We came together, and I became kind of an extension of the coach's arm. What I did is I brought life lessons into that wrestling room. I brought all my experience in life in there. I didn't have the deep, low single, the technical ability, but I brought life into that room, and it really changed the dynamic. It was a special dynamics that year. I got my ass handed to me for a whole year, I got up off the ground every day and dusted myself off. I could hardly walk in the morning. I had to be stay late and warm down. I had to be there early and warm up. I mean, it was everything I had to get through a practice, and get up and go. But I was at a point in my life where I had sold out so many times, whether it be drugs, whether it be connecting with my family, whether it be my kids, whether it be being a cook. I had sold out so much that I told myself this one time, this one thing in my life, this being in this wrestling room, I'm not going to sell out on this. I'm going to stay there. They have to break my legs. They have to make me quit, okay? And it was the most important decision I could have made at that time, besides not picking up a drink that day, it's like, okay, I'm not going to drink, and I'm going to go to practice. And I showed up every day, man, and I got my ass handed to me for a whole year. And that's an important part of the story, too, because you go after things and you set your goals and you chase your dream and you chase your vision and you put everything into it, everything you got. And sometimes there's a bigger plan out there. Sometimes your win doesn't come when you think you deserve it, or when you think you've earned it, or when you think it comes when it comes. And are you willing to stay in the fight and keep moving forward? That's the question. How resilient can you be? Well, I was willing to stay in it, and so I won one match that whole year, Joe. One match, and it was a battle, boy. Getting up every day and going to practice, taking loss after loss after loss after loss, and looking at yourself in the mirror and going, man, can I continue to do this? Can I continue to get my ass handed to me? Can I take another loss and keep moving forward? That's the question. How much can I take emotionally? How much can I take? What is it worth? What am I trying to do? And I made a commitment to show up every day for a whole year, no matter what happens. And I did. And and honestly, I could have stopped right there, probably, and been okay. I went back. I could come back. I got to go do it again. I got restructured my life. I was sober another year almost. So at that point, it would have been good. But I had to make the decision: am I going to follow this through for another year and take another year in ass whoopings, or what am I going to do? Really, that's potentially that's what's could happen. And it was just like a light went on, and said, man, I spent 20 years to get here. I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm in the best mental state in my life. My life is getting better. I'm starting to build a relationship with my kids again. It's working. Everything's going really well outside of, there's massive wins in my life. And so I seen the value of me just being on this team and doing what I'm doing. So man, I went home. Joe, I went home 2007 after the season. I went home and I started training every day. And I'd get up, eat chicken, train. I'd go home, train. Twice a day. My diet was right on. I literally made every decision. I said, okay, we're gonna take this one more year. We're gonna go put everything we got into it. I figured out that I got an advantage over some of these guys, and some of those matches were close, and I had some good hand strength and I was tough, and I could last the whole match, and there were some advantages I had, but I came up a little short, and so I started to figure out how to work with what I could do, and I knew I was in control of losing 10, 15 pounds through the summer. I knew I was in control of making sure that I could wrestle 6, 7, 8, 10 minutes. And so I went after that. I was never going to get perfect technique. I was always going to be the guy that just came in and roughed you up hard and lasted you out. So what I did is I lost 15 pounds that summer. And I went from 223 beginning of the season, wrestled 197. I dropped down to 185 throughout the summer of training. And so a lot of these kids lay off during the summer. They don't really train completely rigid and tight, and they just don't. And so here I am, started the 2008, started the season. I'm 15 pounds lighter. I'm not last in line on the runs anymore. I'm top 5, top 3. I'm in shape. So I was excited, man. I came into the season in shape, and I ended up transforming myself into this athlete. And I remember the first tournament was within 2 or 3 weeks of the season, and everybody's like, man, wow. I came back stronger and tougher than ever, in great shape. And I was motivated to finish this thing and finish it and do everything I could to be to compete at the highest level I could. And I did that, Joe. I did that. I came in and we went to the Pacific. I wrestled 5, 6 matches. I ended up winning 4 matches out of the 6, the first competition of the year, and I already won more matches than I did the whole year before. So now I'm excited. You know, my self-esteem is high. I'm like, I'm kicking butt. So, so I ended up training hard, rolled through that next season, and I ended up winning that whole season. I think I lost just a handful of matches that whole season. And I ended up, we had regionals at Clackamas Community College. It was home, so it was exciting. You know, having the home court, having all the fans, and by then I'd been in the newspaper. I'd been on, you know, a lot of papers, and word got out. Here, you know, the old guys competing, and really the story is when the papers would get a hold of me and they wanted to talk about my story, it was they were blown away that I was 38 years old, but then they find out my history and where I came from, and they were like, "Oh my God, we have to have this story," you know. And so there was some exposure, and so with that there was a little bit of pressure, and there was extra people around the mats and more people in the fans, but it was exciting. It was a really exciting time for me, man, because you know, a couple years before that, nobody wanted to even be around me, you know, and here I am now. Everybody wants to be around me, you know, and really, it's wrestling saved my life, you know. When I made a decision, I never had to win a match, dude. I never had to win a match. I was winning my life back, you know, and just the fact that what it did for me, I never had to win a match. Because I was going to become a better person. I was going to become a better father. I was going to become a better businessman just through the experience of being on that team for a couple of years, you know. But I went on to play second at the region. I won a bunch of matches at the tournament, qualified for nationals, went off to Minnesota for nationals with the JCs, and you know, in that process, I won a match at the nationals. I did win a match, and I believe I'm one of the oldest that ever competed at the junior college national tournament. I would say I'm in the top couple there, if not the top. And you know, ESPN followed us around and did a E60 documentary. You were talking about it earlier, watching it, and the story went out on ESPN, and it got a lot of notoriety, you know, and a lot of people got up off their couches and started jogging after they seen my story. A lot of old guys putting their wrestling shoes on, and I still get messages, "Man, I think I want to make a comeback. I saw your story. I can't," you know, you know. And for me, man, I ended up graduating. I got an education in the automotive field. Got fully certified. I own a small automotive shop here in Portland. You know, I've owned it for 10 years now. I'm a little owner-operator. And, you know, I found out about the Masters after college. And when I found out about that, I was all in, you know. So I just had to decide on if I had enough. And I you know, I was still healthy graduating, you know, in 08. I was healthy. I felt good. I hadn't been injured real bad to where I couldn't wrestle anymore. So I dove into the Masters, and I competed every year for 9 years after that in Vegas, and competed in Athens, Greece, and in Iowa. And you know, we went on to win some more matches. And during that process, I built a big following, you know, because, you know, people love a good comeback story, you know, and everybody on the planet can relate to struggle at some level, you know, and just because I struggled with drug addiction, and there's so many things that people battle in their life, whether it's depression, whether it's insecurities, whether it's eating, whether it's, you know, connecting with people, or whether it's drugs, or whether it's alcohol. The struggle is real for that person. And what I've learned about my story is that it's so important that it's out there, because I am not that special. I'm not that unique. Yes, I persevered. Yes, I worked hard. Yes, I never sold out. Yes, I accomplished some pretty unbelievable goals. But we all have an opportunity to make a comeback. we all can reorganize our life. And it's never too late to make a comeback. You know, that's the thing. You make mistakes. It's never too late. At any point in your life, you can intervene and say, okay, I'm done going down that road that way, and I'm going to turn. You know, but I went on, I started sharing my story about 10 years ago on the road while I was competing and while I was training and building the following, and I created Be a Champion in Life. And, you know, what it is, it's about, you know, power of story. And so I go out and speak to a lot of youth. You know, we had 54 events last year, you know, and I think we spoke to 60, 70,000 kids about the dangers of addiction, the dangers of poor choices. We encourage leadership and encourage change, you know, like, hey, listen, you know, and especially right now with vaping uncontrollably with our youth. You know, teen suicide is high. You know, there's a disconnect, man, and what I found is my story is very important, and it needs to be out there. And so, so we went out. I've been working on my autobiography for about 10 years now. The final chapter really didn't happen until 2015-16, so it's okay that I took a while. You know, going off to Athens, Greece, and competing with our Veterans USA team. You know, my experience coming up short in 2015 at Nationals and placing second was a really important moment for me. Because by far I should have won it in 15. But there's a great reason why I ended up in the consolation bracket. And it needs to be talked about, you know. And then 16 going on and doubling up and winning it. Launching our Be a Champion Life wrestling camp. Just some really exciting things during that period of time that really kind of put the story to have a final chapter. You know, obviously the story's still going, but it was great for the read, you know. And you know, and right now with the struggle that's happening in the world, Joe, you know, I couldn't have scripted the publishing of my book at a more prime time because it's such a story of hope. And I wrote it. I spent 10 years writing it and the reason I did is because it wasn't just about wrestling. And it wasn't just about drug addiction. And I wanted to be able to encompass everybody. And the way I did that and the way I delivered the messages that needed to be delivered was a grand slam. So I'm proud and excited about it, you know. And I think that whether it's a fourth grade kid in his classroom reading it and having discussions with the teacher about different messages and chapters in it, or some old retired wrestler or athlete that, you know, our arms reached really wide on this one. And so that was really important to me. But, yeah, so, you know, hey, wrestling was the heartbeat. Wrestling was the key element, the key recipe that I needed, you know. And honestly, a lot of people ask, well, what would have happened if you hadn't had wrestling? It's a good question. We'll never know. We'll never know. You know, maybe I would have still made it. I got over 16 years clean and sober now. I got, you know, 16 years since I've been in that homeless shelter. You know, and wrestling is not the only thing that kept me focused and on track. But wrestling was an important part of the recipe, you know. My kids played such an important role. My kids, oh my God, dude. Once I realized, like, I never want to jeopardize the relationship with my kids ever, you know. And they look up to me like they're a hero, you know, and we have for years now. And we have a great relationship with Bob and have a great relationship with their moms. And, you know, it's all about, you know, I was chasing a national title. That's what I was doing for 10 years. That's what I was chasing. That was my goal. I want a big stop sign, man. And so I did everything I could to reach that goal. And during that process, it helped every other aspect of my life. And so once it was all said and done, and there I am, I'm standing 16 at the top of the podium. I'm looking back at my life, dude, and I'm going, wait a minute. The real championship is the man I became. That father, that husband, that business owner, that man of integrity, man. Here I am, I got my sights on the title, man. And what really happened was I got to be that guy I always wanted to be my whole entire life. I mean, even that 20 years of making bad choices, you think I wasn't sitting in a jail cell, wishing I was in school, wishing I was on the team, wishing I was somewhere else, you know? So really wrestling became that vehicle for me. And that vehicle really helped me find myself. And in finding myself, I found out that I'm really, really, really good at some things. And so I've been able to build a business, and I've been able to connect with athletes and coaches all around the country. I probably got, I know you got a pretty thick phone book yourself, but I've been in so many college rooms and high school rooms and schools, and I'm at all the tournaments, and so I'm fortunate because now with being a champion, my business gives me an opportunity to be at the places that I always dreamed of being, and now I get to be there, and so it's always fun when somebody hits me up, and I appreciate guys like you and Andy Hamilton and from track, and Scott Casper from radio, Journeyman, Papalizio, all you guys, always, grab me up and try to keep my story on the forefront every couple of years, and I appreciate that, who would have thought I was going to keep moving, keep going, So, it's been a process, man, and I got bigger goals. We're not done yet. And so, but I'm excited about the book. I'm excited to get this out to the world. And maybe I can crack into some corporate stuff and do some leadership conferences if we get through this corona, and get back to our feet on the ground. And then maybe I can help some more programs, hopefully, because that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. And this, well, this is going back and this is coming down,
You got to even things out.
Yeah, I decided that when they cut when the schools shut down and the sports got shut down, I usually go on speaking tour every month for a week or two, and I've done it for 10 years, Well, when they cut everything down, I'm growing this till the next speaking tour. So, and it might be a while.
I think it looks good.
Might be a easy top.
Nice. Hey, so can I ask you some questions?
Absolutely.
All right. So first of all, I love the second half of the story, and the first half is really tough, but I still want to dig in just a little bit right there, just to kind of help people understand. I know you said from that first time you tried drugs, you loved it, but how long did it take for you to realize that you had a problem, like that this has become a problem?
Yeah, so I didn't realize it I didn't realize that it took me a while. It took me about a year before I really realized, like, it's got control over me. Like, it's going to control me. And it took that long before I realized. Part of it was also I had money. Okay, so when you have money and you have drugs, you're masking the real problem here. So it took me a little while to run out of money and have to scrape to make it. So I would say within a year I knew that I had a problem. I knew that I was in trouble, and then I knew that college was on the wayside. But the reality of it is, knowing you have a problem, knowing that your life is on a downward spiral, and being able to stop that are two completely different things, you know. And then the problem with is it doesn't take very long before you just accept the fact that your life is never going to, you accept the fact this is where I'm bound for. This is what I'm a drug addict. I'm a criminal. I'm a convict. What happens is it slowly manipulates you into thinking that you're less than. And once that happens, it's even harder to get at. Basically you buy into the to the lie, is what it is. Because now, I think I'm one cool cat because I'm, a man on the scene as a drug addict. Well, I'm right next to dirt, really, and but yeah, it didn't take me long, Joe. I knew when I got back from Alaska, and I'm a kid that came from never had any money, and all of a sudden I got $50,000, and so it was actually a recipe for disaster. And here I am. I'm the life of the party, and everybody's using me because I got money, and so and coming from a kid with low self-esteem to begin with, all of a sudden I'm somebody people want to be around. So, but I remember the first time I went to jail was about a year. I went to jail a couple of times, but the one story I talk about is so when I really knew. Let me tell you a story. So here I am. I'm getting ready to go fishing again. Okay. About a year after the first trip, I'm getting ready to go fishing again, and we have a party the night before because it's a see me off party. Hey, let's have a party, and then we go off, fly out to Alaska and go fishing. Well, that night I got into a really big knockdown, drag out fight with a longtime friend of mine. Like, he's considered my brother, and I got into a fight with him, and he ended up in the hospital, and the cops kicked in my door and took me to jail. I woke up in jail. I missed the fishing boat, my flight, and so I didn't go fishing that year. And when I came back from that, I'm not going to tell any more about the story because it's an important story about, about guilt and shame and how miserable I was at the time. And then also it's about healing, because that friend of mine is my friend today. But it took a few years. But when I missed that boat to go to Alaska, I got fired from the fishing boat. I woke up in jail after a fight with one of my very best friends. I realized that I was on a mission of destruction, and I knew that it was bad, and I knew that it was out of control. But yeah, didn't take long, man. Within a year, I was there.
You think missing that fishing boat was a good thing for you?
It's really hard to say. It definitely when let me put it this way. I think I would have rather missed the fishing boat and not lost one of my best friends that night. Okay, but later on, that moment becomes really important because I start looking back on my life when I start getting clarity, looking back on my life and looking at the people I hurt, looking at the people that I've pushed away, I've separated from, and Andrew was one of those really important people in my life. My kids, Andrew, my mom. There were some people that were really important, and so I think that fishing was going to be short-lived anyway. Okay, because the way I was conducting myself, I couldn't hold down a real job anyway. Because it got real unmanageable real quick, Joe. After that, it got really unmanageable. And I did fish for a couple more years on some shabby companies, but at the end of the day, uh, a drug's job is to kill you, Joe. That's its job. And I got out alive, let's just say.
What's life like in prison?
Well, I've been in some minimum security prisons. I've been in a lot of treatment centers. I've been in work camps. But when I went to the penitentiary, when they finally, I had done 6-7 years of my life over that 20-year period, and I finally kind of graduated. They sent me over to OSB. I just remember sitting at the chow hall and sitting at the table, scared to death. And the guys around the table, all 250, 300 pounds, lifers, 3, 4, 500 years they're doing amongst each others. And here I am, a guy that's made a lot of bad choices, but never done anything violent or, really, really violent. And here I am sitting with these guys, prison's dirty. Prison is segregation. Prison is a place where your ego is the most important thing. How big you did it, how bad you were, how tough you were, how big of a drug dealer you were, how big of a bust it was. It's all a fraud, dude. It's all ego driven, and I write about how like you get there and everybody's thing was bigger than it ever was. It was but the thing about it is that prison mentality and that convict belief system is part of the problem. I had to fix that after so many years. I had to get out of that, and realize that there's a life out there, and that life does not include drugs anymore. And I want to live it. They thought I was crazy. I was running the track, and I'd get into wrestling stance on my feet and shuffle my feet around, and I would do stuff like that, man. And in my head, I was dreaming about being on the team, and never knew it was possible, but I'd always dream of being on the team, being in that wrestling room. And I remember when that last time I did a year, I stayed away from everybody in prison. I went spent time by myself in my cell. I wrote letters to my kids. I'd run the track, and I would not associate with anybody that whole time, because I was trying to calculate a plan. I was trying to figure out how to get out of this lifestyle. I was trying to figure out how do I move forward from here, and I knew that inmates are so corrosive, man, and prison is so controlling, and it would be easy to get sucked back in. So I stayed safe for a year. That gave me a chance. That way, when I got, I went to the homeless shelter, but I had a year of planning my release, prison is not a place for anybody, it's for criminals, it's for convicts, I don't know, Joe, do you know I had 7 felony convictions, man, and over the years, and what I'm going to tell you today is that, I'm felony free today, and once I won that tournament in 16, and once I realized how, we've been speaking for 10 years, and I was trying to figure out what my next goal was going to be, and I said, you know what, even though I've been able to find success with doing what I'm doing, I said, you know what, I'm going to go fight and kick and scratch to get my felonies expunged, because here I am, a guy that's been clean almost 2 decades, a guy that hasn't had any police contact for 16 years, who hasn't done a super violent crime, If I can't get my record expunged, then nobody can. That's what I thought in my head. I was thinking, and so I went after it, and I spent 2 years fighting for. I went down to California, I went up to Washington, here in Oregon, because I'm 3 states, and I ended up getting all my whole record expunged. I can pass a background check today, and that was the big accomplishment for this year, and so and I can add that into my speeches, how that was important to me, Joe, like 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 I wanted to accomplish that mountain, and I did. So, but yeah, they drag with you forever. That's all I know. It's been a thorn in my side, dude, and honestly, I've had to navigate differently than most people. I've had to work my way around, work twice as hard to get certain business loans and do certain things and go into schools. And there's so many roadblocks in front of me because I'm a felon, but I'm still fighting through them,
Yeah.
and able to navigate differently. But then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go attack that one, and so we finally got all that stuff done. But yeah.
What did you feel the first time you walked into the coach's office in Clackamas? I remember, you told the story about the AD, but did they take you serious, or what did it feel like when you first walked in the room?
Well, to be honest with you, I was scared to death.
Of course.
I tried to let it show. Here I am. I'm an old man, dude, but I'm scared to death. I don't know what's ahead. I'm scared. I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm not going to be accepted. I'm not going to be taken serious. But and then having that separation. Because these are 19-year-old kids. I'm 38 years old, dude. I got kids their age. And, I'm sure there was an over-under. Is he going to make it a week? Is he going to make it 2 weeks? I'm sure there was an over-under, and there was bets going on, and, snickering, and we'll see what happens, But I will tell you one story. So, and this will explain to you what the mindset was for the coaches, okay? Because they know how hard it is. The odds are stacked way against me making it through the season. They figured I'd make it through Ironman the first couple of weeks, and then I'd be done. Well, about 3 weeks in, a month in, with certifications. Where they take your weight, and you take your body fat, and they figure out how much weight you can lose for the season. Okay, so all the athletes are called in line while they do certifications. Well, here I'm in line, right? Well, one of the coaches came up to me and he goes, "Hey, Rich, hey, this is for the athletes that are certifying, that are competing this year, And so he's trying to let me know, hey, this is for the guys that are competing, And I go, and I looked at him and I go, well, Coach, I think we probably should keep that option open, And I should probably say, he's, okay. So that tells you what the mindset was. It's like, he's here to work out a little bit, blow a little steam. I'll feel young again for a minute, and then he's going to be gone, But here I was, that was like, and they have no idea what that meant to me to certify. Never had to wrestle a match, Here I am. I just want to do this, and so, but yeah, it was, it didn't take long though, man. I'm telling you, within a month or two, they knew I was serious. I was hanging in there, I was competing, I was wrestling, I was showing up every day, working hard, I was working really hard.
Yeah.
And so they bought in. They bought in pretty quick, Joe. They figured, he'll be here, but yeah, I think the over/under was a week. I think it was you make it through Ironman that first week, and then somebody won some money. I know that, or somebody lost some money.
Was there ever a moment, my understanding with addiction is that it's something that you work on, that's a fight in your life forever. But was there ever a moment where you were like, I got this, like where you just knew that you were on the right path and you were the person you wanted to be?
Absolutely. It's so So I have this conversation with a lot of people. It's about, the problem is that with addiction, it's a revolving door. The rate of success is pretty low, really. And part of the problem is that as an addict, and we get clean, we stay clean for a few days, a week, a month, a few months, maybe even a year, but then we relapse and we sell out again, and we don't really give ourselves a real chance to really find ourselves, because I literally was still trying to figure out who I was after being clean 2 years, and if you're willing to give yourself a chance and stay clean long enough, you're going to start reaping some really, really important rewards, and we think these rewards are to get our car back or our house back or that killer job or that, but really, the real reward is when you find yourself, and you find yourself inspired to stay clean, and you find your purpose. And once you're able to find your purpose, then it's a lot easier to stay sober, and that sense of purpose is so important, and for me, this is wrestling for me. It could be something else for somebody else, okay? Like, I needed wrestling. Somebody else needs something else, But you have to keep yourself busy. You have to be moving towards something, and you have to try to find your purpose. And, I was probably, honestly, 4, 5, I don't know, years sober before I really realized I think I got this, I think I got this. I had gotten a bunch of letters from some 8th grade kids in my post office box, and the teacher had done a class lesson around my story over somewhere in New York, and they wrote me, and I don't know, Joe, that was so powerful for me, like here's these kids reaching out to me, now I've become this important role model for this group of kids, just this one group of kids, and so I don't know, man. That's why I think that coaches are so important, Joe. Coaches are so important in these young athletes' lives. They have got a big old hat on their head, and I could not thank the coaches enough around the country for what they do, because they are not only coaching these athletes how to do a sport, but they're actually the most important role model in these kids' lives. They're the one the kids look up to. They're the ones, there's disconnected families, there's broken families, there's dads that not home, there's split families, but these coaches are there for these kids every single day, and these kids look up to them so much. That's why it's so important, Joe, that we lead by example. And as a coach myself, I want to make sure that I'm leading by a positive example for these kids, because they are reaching out and sponging on the coaches, man. And you're such an important role model in their lives, and you can make or break a kid, but these kids need sports. But yeah, I found wrestling. I stayed sober for a while. I figured out how to stay sober, and I found wrestling. At some point, I realized that I never want to go back to that lifestyle again. I realized that obsession to use drugs and alcohol was lifted, where I didn't think about it all the time, where every time a tough situation happens in my life, I don't think about just drinking. There's a celebration, I'm not thinking about drinking. It's just, there's a point where I realized I think I got this. And honestly, here we are. 16 years later, I still haven't picked up a drink. I still haven't used a drug. So the the formula for me worked, okay? You know, and 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 yes, I did go to AA. Yes, I did do NA, and yes, I went to treatment, and yes, I went to a mentor program, and yes, I found wrestling. You know, but the one thing I did that was more important than any of it was that every single day I'd wake up and say, I'm not going to use today. I'm just not going to use today. And I made sure that I didn't, you know, and one day turned into two and years. And, you know, I never want, let me tell you something. Joe, I've talked to so many kids and coaches, and I'm a role model for a lot of people around the country now today. You know, I'm a different kind of coach, man, but let me tell you something. I don't want those kids to look at me 2 years later and go, that fake and that fraud. You know? These kids need somebody that's going to say what they're going to do and do it. Mm-hmm. That's what these kids need today. They need us to live the life that we're talking about. And so I've made it a commitment and a decision in my life that this is the way I'm going to live my life, and I'm not going to sell out. And these kids can always look into me and find out that I'm living that life I'm talking about when I'm in that gymnasium or I'm in that auditorium and I'm talking to these kids. You know, 2 years from then they'll find on Instagram or read the book and dig me up, and I'm still that guy living that positive lifestyle, you know. And so it's just really important to me today, Joe, you know. And what I mean, let's be honest. I'm one bad decision away from going all the way back there. Okay? So then let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Can I have one beer with you, bud? Can I have one beer with you, Joe?
Mm-mm. No.
You know, so you know, it's important because a lot of people always ask me, well, why not? You know, here you are, 16 years clean, your life's different. Why can't you just have one? You know, can you control it? Can you do that? You know, maybe I can, Joe, but I'm never going to find out. Mm-hmm. I'm never going to find out. You know why? Because maybe I can have one beer with my buddy during a ball game and not have it completely destroy my life, you know, or not have it snowball into more drink. Maybe I can at this point, maybe. But let me tell you something. If there's a sliver of a chance that one drink could turn into 2 and then into 10 and then tomorrow and pretty soon start taking me back towards that dark place again, I don't want to chance it. So I just don't drink at all, you know. And I'll tell you what, we're not missing nothing, dude. We're not missing nothing, you know. It really, we're not. More power to you if you can. I personally can't, and I don't look down on those that can. And yes, I have the fights every once in a while, and my buddy brings a 6-pack over. He drinks a 6-pack, you know, and I'm fine. It's not going to jump on me, okay? You know, but there we are again. I'm in that place in my life that I'm safe and that I don't have to worry about, you know. But 2 years sober, I'm still scared to go into a bar and have a meeting with somebody, okay? I'm still scared to sit in my buddy's house that's having a big party. But here we are 16 years later, you know, I'm pretty safe now.
What was it like rebuilding or your relationship with your kids?
So that was probably the hardest thing that I had to deal with, okay? That I had to go through. You know, I abandoned those kids. I neglected those kids. Drugs became very important in my life, and with that, my kids had a right to take all the time they needed. My kids had a right to be mad at me. My kids had a right to be disappointed at me. My kids had a right to take as long as they needed before we could connect, okay? When I got sober and stayed sober for a while, I'll tell you what, my kids called me Rick. They didn't call me Dad. They called me Rick, okay? And so, and we all know what that means. That means there's not that connection. There's not that nurturing. There's not that, you know, that fatherly figure. They called me Rick. And that was very difficult for me, man, because I'm their dad. and but also I needed to be patient and willing to let them go through their process because of what I had done, and I was willing to do that because my kids literally could call me Rick my whole life if they want, as long as we come together at some point. As long as I continued to do the right thing, our relationship was going to get better. I knew that, and I talk about it sometimes, that process, because it took 2 years before my kids called me dad, and I remember it clear as a bell, Joe, because when all of a sudden dad came out, it kind of slipped out once in a while, and it warmed my heart, dude, because I knew we were making progress, and what it comes down to is that from the time I made the decision to change my life, when I told my kids I was going to do something, I did, and I always followed through. And I always showed up, and I made sure that they never feel a disconnect with me ever again. And so it took a couple of years before I was the dad, and their hero, and all that kind of stuff. And my kids and I have an unbelievable relationship, and we have for a lot of years now. And I've taken care of my kids to the very, very best of my ability, and we've made up lots of ground over the years, and they never have to worry about me being absent ever again, and their moms don't either, So, and luckily, I've been married 8 years now with my lovely wife Danae, and luckily she bonded and gets along with my kids at a very high level too. And so that is magic. The Jensen family is all getting along real good. But it took Dad making a decision, Dad following through, Dad showing up, and Dad never selling out. And my kids got it made pretty good.
Nice. Well, you have a big old smile on your face every time you talk about them. That's for sure.
Well, they were the most important piece in it all, and they're still, they were the most important piece in the beginning. They've been the most. So let me tell you something. So one of the things that I believe deep down in my heart, Joe, and I always have. Once I got clarity, once I decided to change on, once I got wrestling and all that kind of stuff, and I found my purpose, and blah 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 blah. The one thing early on in this whole journey and recovery and staying sober and clean and all this lifestyle change, the one thing I knew that was the most important thing, above and beyond all the other things that I'm chasing, was my kids, dude. If I knew, even when I was trying to figure it out, I knew deep down, if I could have the relationship with my kids, if I could rebuild that relationship and have that be that top-notch father and that bond with my 2 daughters, if I could get there and hold that right where it needs to be, then everything else in my life would be okay. Because that answers a whole lot of other good things in your life, okay? So if I could do that, then the rest of it would work itself out. And I knew that. I knew that. Being the father, that real father that shows up and is always there, accountable and responsible and all that kind of stuff. And I knew that the rest of the things would work themselves out, So, and it's always been my philosophy, and it worked out like that. So I was lucky. I had good kids.
So tell me,
it would have been easy to be resentful and angry,
Yeah.
I mean, really, as a kid, it would have been easy for them to be like, well, screw you, And so luckily, I got pretty good kids, and luckily, I didn't just half step it, I'm doing, I went all in. I went all in with everything I had. So, and it really, I think it helped the process a lot. So,
what are if you look at today, and you spend a lot of time talking to youth and kids, what are the dangers for kids today? Like, what are the number one ways that you feel like you could make a positive impact and giving them some insight and, hey, this is what we got to be careful with, and this is how you'll know if you're going down the wrong path. Thing that makes sense.
Yeah, well, kids So a lot of kids are really fighting with self-esteem issues, you know, and so what we found is that a lot of kids, a lot of youth today that are vaping and smoking and drinking, a lot of them are doing it because their buddies doing it, you know, and deep down they really don't want to do it, but their buddies are doing it, and they don't want them to look down on them, you know, they don't want to feel not included, and they want to be part of. They want to be, you know, and so if we could get these kids to find their own independence, you know, their own decisions upon what they want to do, you know, and it's the way we do that is through encouraging leadership, encouraging these kids to stand up and find their own place, you know. But I'm telling you, man, there's a lot of split families out there. There's a lot of drug and alcohol addiction in the household and in the family. The vaping is off the charts right now, and so these kids are gravitating, and these kids have a lot of stuff pulling at them. There's a lot of things pulling at them, you know, and that's part of why it's so important that these coaches build their programs and keep these kids engaged with sports, you know, because sports are going to give these kids an outlet. Sports are going to give these kids something to do, you know. You know, one of the things I've learned is that people are afraid to talk about it. Okay, you know, I talk about it. You know, I'm not scared to have a meeting with parents and talk about little Johnny. I'm not scared to do that, you know, and I don't pull punches. I shoot straight. And first off, as a parent, we have to realize that our kids are susceptible to making these bad choices, you know, and we cannot be afraid to talk about these subjects. We cannot be afraid to connect with our kids, you know. I think we're finding out that there's a lot of disconnect in the house, you know. Parents are working 2 jobs, mom's over here, dad's over here, kids are kind of taking care of themselves a lot of times, you know, and as a you know, as a father, I want to make sure I'm connecting with my kids, you know. You know, the schools need more programs. The parents need to connect with their kids and talk about these issues more, you know. I've got a YouTube channel. There's a lot of seminars and things on there of different subjects, different focuses, and and there's a lot of other people out there doing stuff like this, you know. And so there's a lot of information at the click of the button. And so parents that don't understand it, don't know anything about vaping, don't know anything about heroin, don't know anything about addiction, and don't know anything about bullying or whatever the subject may be, you know, I'm the guy that encourages you to sit down and get on the computer and watch some stuff and find something you can sit down and watch with little Johnny. And what I do is I actually give you a green light to talk about these hard subjects, you know, and it gives you the okay, and it makes it easier to talk about it, you know. Kind of gives you a green light. You come to one of my seminars, it kind of cracks down all those hard conversations and those walls, you know. It's like, yeah, you know, I get intimate, I get honest, and I get vulnerable, and I just lay it out there. It kind of gives everybody a green light to talk about this stuff, you know, so it's really important. And I think we just need to keep an open conversation, you know, and that's part of why, you know, I was hoping parents that have a hard time with it, you know, get the autobiography, read it yourself, you know, have little Johnny read it, and then you can sit down and talk about, create the discussions around it, you know. It's just life. We were just talking about life, you know, but they're tough conversations to have, you know. And so, these kids, you know, they're struggling, bud. They're struggling. They're having a hard time finding their way, but, you know, it's so important to make sure that stories like mine are on the forefront, you know, like, I'm just an everyday Joe, man. Get home, wrestling, school, got off track, and, you know, I'm lucky I didn't die. But kids need to know that people die out there for them, you know. They die. And it's not a road that they want to travel down, you know.
Yeah.
And it's easy to some of the issue we have is that it can't be my little Johnny. shut up, not my little Johnny. Well, it might be your little Johnny, and I think that, vaping is just kind of blowing up the last few. I said that a couple times, but this is starting down a road that we don't want to go down here. We don't want to start down this road here. And there's kids as young as 3rd, 4th, 5th grade that are addicted to vaping. And my thing is, so okay, fine, it's just vaping. Go ahead, you can set it. It's vaping. Okay, well, let me tell you something. So from nothing to alcohol to drugs, it's a pretty big leap. It's a pretty big leap to go from I'm doing it, boom. Well, once you start vaping and smoking and doing a little bit of pot, that leap starts getting a lot smaller to those harder drugs, okay? That's how I kind of explain it. I tell a story about it, but that leap is a little bit less and less of a leap, once you start kind of carrying yourself in a negative manner and, you start doing stuff and you're hanging out with some guys that are partying and you start doing these things, that leap starts getting less and less to jump to harder drugs, and so, but yeah, it's all about that leap, dude. And I think that vaping is that little gateway that's opening up some stuff that we might, these poor kids really don't realize that they're already kind of going down a road that's not the most healthy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so hey, show us the book. I know right now it's tough to have a plan, but what in your eyes, what's going to be the plan? Where can people find out more, and then hopefully get a chance to actually be at one of your what do you call it, a seminar, one of your when you're speaking?
Well, hey, I appreciate the interview. First off, you guys are doing great stuff, keeping wrestling relevant and helping build our sport. It's hard right now with everybody locked down. No wrestling practice, no tournaments. It's hard to stay relevant. Right now when it comes to something having to do with wrestling, especially right now. Luckily, I see there's a lot of webinars and trainings on video and stuff going on. Coaches are doing stuff. But up here, I got all my sponsors for a wrestling camp, up here behind me. Appreciate those guys. They're hanging with us, But once we get to the other side of this thing, I just published my autobiography, Be a Champion in Life, Homeless to Champion, the story of Richard Jensen. This book, dude, it doesn't matter who you are, you can relate to it, it doesn't matter. And we're pretty pumped about it. People have been chewing at the bit for years waiting for it. We had something like 600-700 pre-orders within a couple weeks, so it's pretty exciting for us, especially right now when there's such a struggle in the world, It's such a tough time for everybody trying to figure it out, and here I am, it's a story of hope. At such a tough time, so I couldn't have launched at a better time. It wasn't planned necessarily like that. It just happened to come out right now. Anyway, hey Joe, I just want to say, man, I appreciate you helping keep me relevant. It's without wrestling, without speaking, it's been a little weird, a little awkward. Usually I got something going on every few weeks or month. But it's been exciting. We got our wrestling camp still on the schedule for August. I don't know if we're going to have it. I don't foresee it, but it's still on the schedule. We have an awesome camp down at the Oregon coast. I take 30 athletes in the tour bus down there. We go camping. It's real wrestling camp, and we work out every day at the facility, and we're right on the beach. It's just an unbelievable experience for the kids. It's a very unique concept. Sitting around the campfire talking about life at night, and it's kind of the bonus to it all is bonding up with the kids, bringing what I do out in the world to our wrestling camp, and helping these kids kind of get a different perspective on things. We had Mark Hall last year. He came down for our camp, and we ran a big open clinic on the last day, and I don't know, we had 150 kids show up. It was just a neat experience, and Mark Hall was great. He was a great add to our camp. We're going to raise the bar a little bit every year, hopefully, and even if we don't have it this year, we'll kick it off next year. But at the end of the day, man, we're planning a Hope Tour next year. It was supposed to be in the fall. We're going to go out and do a speaking tour, book signing tour, schools and bookstores. And with the corona, we're not sure exactly, but we're still planning a Hope Tour. It just might not be in the fall. It might be a little later, but it's in the 2020, We'll see.
Cool.
But you can find us via championlife.com. We're working on our website right now. We're trying to update some things. But you can find me on any social media platform. It's via Champion in Life. Please find us, follow us, stay engaged, because this story needs to be in every household, Go to Amazon. It's on Kindle. It's in paperback. I'd love to get autobiography in everybody's hands, because I think whether you're a coach, you're a parent, you're a kid, you're a grandpa, you can all relate to some facet of the story. And so that's what we tried to do, and I think we did that really well. You guys keep up the great work, Joe.
Yeah, love to talk about having you at a Grow Wrestling event sometime. Thanks for opening up. Super inspirational, and please keep rolling.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for helping keep me engaged too, man. You guys always grab me and talk. It just reminds me, how connected wrestling is. We're all brothers and connected in some way, or shape, or fashion through wrestling. So let's keep raising the bar and just doing good things. Thanks.
All right, Rich. We'll see you around.